Hello everyone. This is a video lesson on how to use the STC databases to find sources and articles that would be suitable to use in a college level research paper. From the STC home webpage, probably the easiest way to navigate to the library webpage is to simply type the word library into the search bar, and we see that it does quickly bring us to the library web page. In the center of the screen, you see a green chat button that would allow you to chat with a librarian if you wanted some help or had a question for a librarian. But if we direct our attention to the Discovery search bar in the middle, this is always a good place to start if you're not quite sure where to start or how to start. In some cases, professors may direct you to certain databases or recommend certain databases, and if so, you'd always want to start with those. But in the absence of that, the Discovery search is certainly a good default. Now, before we do look at that, I do want to click on the database link to show you that we do have a subscription to 121 databases, and they run the gamut of subjects. So there's something here for every discipline and lots of different interests. So they're not limited just to things that you might use in an academic setting. You might find databases that appeal to personal interests, hobbies, or things that you're interested in, like fixing your car, for example. If you look here under the A's, we'll see auto repair source. So it's a database that will provide you with information that might be useful if you're trying to work on your car, for instance. All right, you'll also notice that, if you scroll through the list, you'll see in a purple bar the phrase "not in Discovery." And so what that means, if I were to bounce back over here to the Discovery search, that means that those databases that you see that little purple button on, that those are not included in a Discovery search. So the Discovery search will look in several databases, but it won't look in all of them. Now, the good thing about starting with the Discovery search is that it will generally yield a lot of results if there are results to be had, but the downside is that sometimes it can yield too many, but that's a problem that's generally fairly easy to rectify by using limiters and search strategies to reduce the number of search results that you have to work with, and to also increase the likelihood of their relevance to whatever it is that you are looking for. Now, for this video lesson, I'm using the paper assignment that asks students to find or identify a problem, issue, or challenge that they are likely to encounter on the job in their future profession or career of choice. So it's not about what's going on in the jobs that you may have right now, but what kind of problems, issues, or challenges are students likely to encounter once they're on the job in their chosen career or profession that they are working toward now. And it's not just about identifying the problems or issues, the challenges you might face, but also researching and exploring potential solutions, strategies, initiatives, ways of dealing with, mitigating negative outcomes, learning how to better manage and deal with these things that you might very well encounter in your future careers. All right, so for the purpose of this example, I'm going to use the example of a student who is majoring in nursing and who hopes to one day be a nurse. Now, before I do the official search for resources on the databases, it's always a good idea to do some preliminary research first, whether I do that in the databases or more informally on the internet, just to kind of get a better sense of what some issues or strategies or problems rather that I might encounter on the job as a nurse, especially if I'm not really aware of the things that I might encounter. If I have a friend or family member or somebody that I know that works in healthcare, I could always ask them for ideas, and that might direct my research. But in the absence of that, I might have to do some exploratory research first just to kind of get some ideas. Well, what could I even look for? I might need some help, in other words, in identifying problems or challenges that I might face as a nurse one day. So I've already taken the liberty of having done that, and one of the things that I found that was kind of surprising was that, you know, bullying in nursing is pretty prevalent. And so I want to see if I can find information from the STC databases that would be suitable to use in a paper, like the one that I just described. So I'm going to start right here with just some search terms: bullying in nursing, and I'm going to see what this turns up. And we see that it yields a little over 4,400 results, which is good. That's plenty. But I also want to do a few things to limit the results a little bit. For one thing, I want to only show online items, things that I can access from home, because I am not in a position right now to travel to a library or find sources from in a physical library. I also want to always use the limiter of full text, and this will limit the search results to things that our STC databases have complete access to. So this means that now that I've narrowed it by more than 1,000 more results. So that's good. You know, less is better in this case. So now everything that I click on should be something that I can access online, and it should be something that I can access in full text formats. So just to illustrate, I'm going to go ahead and click on this first source here, see what it is, see if it's worthwhile, and to illustrate a few concepts. Okay, we see on the left-hand side that this article is available in full PDF text form. And when you see an article that is available in PDF format, you do want to go ahead and click on that one or choose that one, because it will show the article as it appears if it were a physical copy in your hand. So you'll see the page numbers. If there are pictures, there will be pictures. If it's in color, you'll see it in color, and so on. And you will have the ability to either print it from this screen. So I could come over here and I could click print. I could save it to my Google Drive. I could download it and save it to my computer. I can email it to myself. I could also print it here. I could save this in a folder and email it to myself later. Or I could email it to myself right now. So I've got lots of different options of things that I could do for this. But before I do anything, I kind of want to skim through this and see, is this even worth kind of setting aside or saving? Is it something that might be useful? And so as I'm looking at it, I see the bullet points, and so it seems more like a bulleted list more so than an article. But let's take a look. And at the top, I see abusive behaviors take various forms, and I'm starting to see the different ways in which bullying can manifest itself in the job. I see that it's a systemic problem. I'm starting to see some of the consequences of what happens when it occurs. And I'm seeing some useful things so far. I'm seeing that it's commonplace. Examples and studies that are kind of illustrating examples of it and the prevalence of it, the root causes of it. And right here, I see recommendations to eradicate the culture of bullying in healthcare. Now, if I weren't making a video and trying to keep it short, obviously I want to read things very carefully before I choose them to actually use in my paper. Sometimes, though, when you're doing your preliminary round of research, you want to do enough reading or skimming to determine its relevance and to determine the likelihood of it being useful. So the reality is that when you do research in the databases, you're going to likely encounter a lot more resources than you actually need for your paper, and so you're going to have to choose the best ones that you can find that you think will be most useful to you in your paper. So you may end up gathering, 2 or 3 times the amount of sources that you actually need, and then it becomes a matter of, okay, well, now I need to go through these and choose the best ones for use in this paper. But a couple of things already that strike me about this one that kind of tell me this one might be a keeper is, number one, I look up here and I see that it says it's 4 pages, but if I look at this and I see that the last, this whole last page here is kind of like for some of the citations, I see that it's really about 3.5 pages or so, and it's kind of a bulleted list. So I like the fact that it's short, and I like the fact that it is dense with so much information of things that will be useful to me in writing this paper. Number one, it has things here that will help me identify this as a legitimate and prevalent problem that I might very well encounter on the job as a nurse. And it also points to not only its prevalence, but what causes it. And there are quite a few bullets a little bit later on about, some strategies and things that can be done to prevent, mitigate, address it, maybe bring awareness to it, and things like that. What I also like about this is, since it's got so much in a short amount of space, not only is that a good thing for me in terms of writing the paper, but it's also good for me in terms of using this as a means to think of other search terms and key phrases that I could use to find specific things that I think I might need to find more information on. So I really like it for that reason. One other thing that I might point that makes this especially useful is that if I come here to the reference section at the end of the article, this is a really neat trick to know, is that anytime you find a source, an article, or a book that looks like it might be really useful and you decide, yeah, I'm going to keep this. Well, yes, you can get ideas from it for other keywords to help you narrow your search to find information on things that you need, but you can also look and see what articles did the person or people who wrote this article use to write this article. In other words, this little 3 or 4 page article or series of bulleted lists that appeared in this, this medical journal, it's essentially a little research paper, or a little research, the product of research. So we see that there's 18 different books or articles or sources that were used to create or generate the things that are talked about here. So you can go through and you can look at the titles here and see if anything looks promising. And the nice thing about it is that if you see something that looks promising, that's what the purpose of this little reference list is. It provides you with enough information so that you could see and look, do we have this particular article or book available in our databases? And if we do, great, you could look at it, see if it's relevant, and see if you want to use it. And if not, and if you had enough time, you could determine whether or not you wanted to request it through interlibrary loan. Because we have a person on staff in the library, and it's that person's sole job to fulfill interlibrary loan requests and find a copy of whatever it is you need at another library somewhere here and get a copy of it for you here to borrow, whether that's a book or an article in a journal that maybe we don't have a subscription to. But most of the time that's not necessary. You can find the vast majority of what you might need for any of your papers right here in the STC databases. So these are some of the things that you need to know to initiate a search and to narrow the search results. I want to show you a couple of other things before I close this video, though. Let's assume for a moment that I do like this article, and I can either choose to print it out here or I could email it to myself. This is really useful because I will tell you something that I've learned from experience. Sometimes you find something, maybe you even jot the title down, you think you're going to be able to find it later, and then you can't remember what database or what keywords you used, and it's super aggravating because you can't find the one thing that you're looking for or remember the steps that you took to get there. So one thing that you can do is you can email an article to yourself, and so you would come to this page, you would put your email address here, put some kind of descriptive phrase here so you know what it is and so you don't ignore it, and then you would go over here, and since this one is available in PDF, I just want it in PDF, and you can choose what citation format you want it to reveal to you for the works cited entry. And for this example, since we are using MLA format, I will choose that. So when this article is emailed, it will include at the end a citation in MLA format for this article. I could also go over here to this little link over here, this icon that looks like a yellow piece of paper, and that will come up with a kind of a scrollable list of all the citation styles that a professor might require a paper to be written in, and I could scroll and find that, copy paste it into a document, my paper, if I'm using it in my paper, but I would have to proofread and check that against a known resource like an MLA handbook or the Purdue OWL website, just to make sure that there aren't any mistakes, and if there are, that I go in and fix those. I want to show one other thing before I close this video out, so let me go back to the search results, to the limiters over here. Should you ever find that you want to narrow your results further, or you want to see what different things pop up, just so you know, these are some other limiters you can choose from. You can limit your results to just scholarly journals that are peer-reviewed, and that's always a good choice because that is, one of the gold standards for sources to use in a research paper, because they go through a much more vigorous vetting and evaluation process before they are published, and they are peer-reviewed by experts in the field in which they are relevant. You can also go by date. For some things, date isn't as important as others. If you're, writing a paper for an English class or a literature class, and maybe you're writing something over a work of Shakespeare, it may not matter if something was written in 1962, because whatever they say might still be relevant about a Shakespearean play. But if you're looking at something in the nursing profession or the hard sciences, you definitely want things that are more current. And notice this one's 2018, so that's still fairly current, so we're probably good on that. But you can also use the date as a limiter as well as format. Now, the neat thing about format is that depending on what a professor allows, this is also a good way to narrow your results rather quickly, and you can kind of bounce back and forth between the different source types to see what the different things have to offer. If I were to click on academic journals, I would go from the 3,000 or so results that I have here, and that would reduce that by about 50% to a little over 1,500 search results, which is good because it's narrowing my search results. If I'm allowed to use newspaper articles, I would have 577 of those. If I were allowed to use magazine articles, there's 427. It also shows the ebooks, the reports that are available. So this is good to kind of narrow your search results, by format. I can also do this with subject, and I can see those there. I can expand the choices to all of them, and I can also choose, which databases to look in. So all of those are strategies for looking at smaller search results. The very last thing that I'm going to click on here, because I already have looked at this and know that it's good, is let me look at this. This is or should be an ebook. So now an ebook is generally going to be too long for most students to use for most of the research assignments you'd probably be given, in many of your classes, but that doesn't mean that they might not be useful. Now, if we look at the title here, it says Fast Facts on Combating Nurse Bullying, Incivility, and Workplace Violence, What Nurses Need to Know in a Nutshell. And I look over here and I see there's a table of contents. Again, it's a book. So I'm probably, if I've got to write a 4-page paper, I'm probably not going to, have time or the inclination to read through all of these. But by looking at, certain things here, maybe I end up reading a chapter in that, and maybe I end up using a chapter. So it is a good, resource to look in. I certainly know that it's going to be relevant. According to the title, they say it's Fast Facts on Combating Nurse Bullying. It implies that things are cut to the chase, even though it is an ebook that's much longer than a regular text. But if there's something relevant there in an individual chapter, that might be useful. and I'll show you some things about that. So you have full access to this ebook, even if it's like 200 pages in length. But if you're wanting to print pages, or if you're wanting to save pages, it's going to limit you to the number that you can do at any one time. And so a lot of times it might be 60 pages or 90 pages, and in most cases, you wouldn't want to, save the whole book or whatnot. But if I were to click on Google Drive over here, let's just see. Okay, so if I were to save, any of this to Google Drive, it would let me save up to 100 pages. So I could do that in spots, or I could maybe save a whole chapter, or I may not even decide to do that at all. Maybe I use get all of my information just from, accessing it here online. But I'm just showing you options that it is possible if you wanted to print out, the 10 or 15 pages that you were going to use, so you could annotate it and mark it up, that you can do that. But the neat thing about this is that you have full access to even full books, provided that they're ebooks, because remember, I included that in the limiter. But that's it. That's in a nutshell. This is the kind of thing that you need to do to find sources that will help you identify a problem, issue, or challenge that you might encounter in your future career of choice, and to find strategies, initiatives, and best practices that you could implement to deal with those things as they happen, or to mitigate negative outcomes and things like that. Okay, so that's it. That's a wrap, and I hope you all have a great day today.